Good afternoon from myself, Nastasia Aranta. Well, we've heard the EFF presser. For more analysis, we are joined by political analyst Khanyi Magubane. Good afternoon, Khanyi. Well, we've heard the presser a little bit earlier on, and I'm curious, from your perspective, what were some of the key takeaways that EFF leader Julius Malema, mentioned that stood out for you?
A very good afternoon to you. I think the one big thing that stood out for me is that sense of humble pie that the CIC was more than willing to eat. He considered that if people have not voted for them, they're not going to impose themselves on people's will. And he said that we can't impose ourselves on the people who have not chosen us to govern. And also what stood out for me is the fact that he said that we will not be approaching anybody for a coalition, but we are certainly open to meeting and talking to people. And he made very specific reasons why he would be open, because he said, if they do go into a discussion with people that are willing to also advance an EFF policy, and we can look at issues of land and a more radical economic, transformation policy. If they find a party that they have synergy with, that they will definitely be willing to talk to them. But otherwise, if they are not going to go into any coalitions, they are more than happy to accept taking the opposition benches in the country's different municipalities. Of course, the CIC very colorful as usual in his oration in answering journalists. And what he did say is that the EFF is a growing party, telling the media to calm down, telling the media to not rush the EFF. They are not in a sprint, that this is a marathon, that they know that there will be give and take, there will be wins and losses along the journey, and that they are in it for the long haul. So what we saw is a slightly more demure, CIC. Malema is usually a little bit more colorful. You would, in other years, see him walking more confidently on the floor. But I think that despite the growth that they have experienced in different parties, different parts of their land, but for the most part, they've seen a general decline in big metros like Gauteng, where they flatlined, and in other provinces like Limpopo, which was a traditional EFF stronghold. However, in these elections, we've seen that they have declined in Limpopo. And he says they are not worried about this because they still have many more years to go in the political arena. They are not worried. They've taken a few knocks, but they are still in it for the long haul.
So the one thing he mentioned as well was that there was no excitement ahead of these elections. And I suppose he is right, because coming into the elections, we had the background of the July unrest and the political killings in KZN and various other issues that were playing around. What do you make of this election season?
I think this election season was definitely more low-key, and the voter turnout certainly speaks to that. The low voter turnout not only speaks to a sense of voter apathy, but also Malema alluded to the fact that the back and forth of whether we are or aren't going to have elections. We know that this was taken up to a court level where it had to go all the way to the top courts. So he says that this particular back and forth demoralized people from actually going to the voting polls. So he also alluded to the fact that the indecisiveness from the powers that be, and them being in a type of a tussle about whether we are or aren't going to have elections. He said that also made an impact. And also we saw Malema saying that, he is confident that, given what has happened now, even in the national elections, they are going to do better. He said that they tended not to do as well in local government elections, but he says he's more hopeful that the party will do better in the next upcoming national elections.
Before I let you go, when it comes to the overall election results so far, were there any pleasant surprises for you, or just surprises in general? One would think, I suppose, KZN and the IFP's, growth since then. What else could have surprised you? We could also include the IFP's growth.
I think what has surprised me is the ANC's lack of ability to maintain or regain the big metros that it lost. I mean, we look at the trio in Gauteng, which is Tshwane, Johannesburg, and Ekurhuleni. They have failed to resonate with the residents of those big metros. In fact, other politicians, I read earlier today, Mbazi Mashilowa saying that the ANC has become a rural party because it continues to get strong support. It continues to get over 60%, 70% of votes in areas that are rural, and yet those who are in strong economic hubs are no longer resonating with the ANC's message. I think that for me was one of the biggest shockers, and we see this in the numbers. You know, all of this is supported by the numbers. We see the ANC losing over 11% of its support in KZN, support which has been taken by parties like the IFP that has continued to grow, like the NFP that has continued to grow, and has now even said that they're going to go to court to try and prevent the release of the final results because they're of the opinion that they've been robbed of at least one ward that they've lost. So I think the ANC has really suffered the biggest blow, and that for me has been really what stood out, that the people are saying this, the numbers are saying this. It's not just us, the analysts, that are saying this, but the numbers themselves are saying that the people have lost resonance with the ANC's message.
Khanyi, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. That is Khanyi Magubane, who is a political analyst. Moving on, the